Hey makeup friends, we're here today to talk about the new Sapphire palette from BH Cosmetics, part of their ongoing Birthstone series. Let's get into this. As always, I want to start off by welcoming you back to my channel, or if you are new here, then hello and welcome. My name is Kara, and on my channel, we like to mix beauty, brains, and the occasional F-bomb. So today's video, I am very excited because we're playing with the new Birthstone palette from BH Cosmetics, and this month it's Sapphire. So first of all, happy birthday to all the September babies out there. I hope you have an excellent birthday this year. Now, here is the color story in here, and I have to say, in person, I'm a little bit relieved. When I saw pictures of it on the BH Cosmetics website, I thought it looked very purple, and it was kind of throwing me. Now, I know that there are different colors to sapphires, everything from white to blue and various other shades in between, but when I think sapphire, traditionally I think blue. And so when I saw the pictures of it and saw swatches on their website, I thought, I think you might have missed the mark a little bit, but I'm happy to report that this is far more blue in person than what it looks like in those pictures. I am going to do some swatches. I'm also going to do some comparisons to some of their other blue palettes just to see if there's any overlap in between, but we will get to that momentarily. First up, let's give a little bit of information on this palette. So like all of the other Birthstone palettes, it is exclusive to the BH Cosmetics website and it retails for $9. It's vegan and cruelty-free, and for those $9, you're getting 7 shadows. So there is a mix of finishes in here. There are mattes, shimmers, and one pressed glitter over here. And as per usual, this larger pan off to the side here represents the actual Birthstone inspired shade, in this situation, Sapphire. So the packaging on here, it's that nice cardboard packaging. It does flip all the way back, and there is a mirror in there as well, in case you are interested in that. So that's basically the information that I want to give on the palette. There's really not all that much to say. I will give you my thoughts on the application after I show you how I created this look, but I will do that at the end of the video. For now, let's get into the swatches of this palette, and then I'm also going to do some comparisons to some of the other blue palettes in the BH Cosmetics lineup. Let's get into it. So up first we have the shade Sapphire, followed by Confidence, Cool, and Organized AF. Then we have Sporty, Sympathetic, and Nice as Pie, which is that pressed glitter shade. So the live swatches were done with no primer, but these swatches here did have primer and obviously a stencil as well. But you can see that that matte blue shade is actually a beautiful cobalt shade, whereas I thought it was going to be purple looking at it online. Sapphire does have a bit of a purple element to it, but it does strongly pull blue, so I'm quite happy with that. The shade Organized AF is sort of like a really dark greenish kind of gray. It's a really interesting color, and I actually really like the inclusion of that rather than a matte black in this palette. So now I want to do some comparisons, and the first palette that I brought out to take a look at was Aquamarine, which was the Birthstone palette from March. And I'm happy to report there is zero overlap between these two palettes. Like, they are not even in the same ballpark, so no need to swatch anything between these two. However, when I take a look at Blueberry Muffin, some of these matte shades in here make me think of the shade Sympathetic, which is that nice cobalt shade in this palette. So in particular, this shade here called So Good looks quite similar, and Cheat Day looks like it might have similar elements as well. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch those ones to compare against Sympathetic. Here we go. So this is Sympathetic from the Sapphire palette, and this is So Good from Blueberry Muffin, and what was it called? Cheat Day. So Sympathetic is kind of like if these two had a baby. Like it's toned down from what this one is, but it is more blue than this one. So not exact dupes, happy to see that, but it's kind of a mix of the two of them. So then I'm going to take a look at Bubblegum, which is part of the Sweet Shop collection, and see if there's anything in here. So in looking at this, let's see here. I'll hold them this way so that we can kind of look at them together. Not really seeing any overlap, to be honest, but for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to compare this shade here with this one called Blueberry, and I'll compare Sporty with Pop over here, although I think they're going to look different upon application. Definitely different shades. So up first, this one here is Sapphire, and then this one is Blueberry from the Sweet Shop palette. This one is Sporty from the Sapphire palette, and then this one here is Pop from Bubblegum. So again, no overlap between those. This is definitely more on like the icy blue side, whereas this one has more of like a silver element to it, and then these two are just like completely different colors. So I'm pleased to see that there's really no duping going on and that they've created an entirely new palette. So with those comparisons out of the way, let's get into the eye look. I started by applying the shade Confidence using a Bristles Beauty E03 DM brush. Once I was happy with the placement of the green, I went in with the shade Sympathetic and applied that using a Volaire E07 brush. As you can see, I overlapped those two shades in the middle just so that there wasn't a harsh line between the two. Next, I went in with the Sigma E36 brush and applied the shade Organized AF. I had some issue in getting it to apply right into the crease, but I will talk about that later on in the video. I'm blaming the eyeshadow primer that I used rather than the shadow. I didn't have any other issues with this shade building up anywhere else that I placed it, just in the crease. And so I think that the culprit was the primer, not the shadow. Next, I used an FR4 brush from Odin's Eye to apply the shade Cool. And I damn near lost my butt because it is beautiful. This is an absolutely gorgeous shade. Then using another brush from Odin's Eye, the FR5, I applied the shade Sporty to the inner portion of my lid. I went back in with the shade Organized AF and placed that on the outer portion of my lower lash line. Then using a Volaire E09 brush, I applied the shade Sapphire to the inner portion of my lower lash line. And again, blended where those two shadows meet so that there wasn't any harsh line between the two. Then I used a clean brush. This one is from BH and it's part of the Birthstone brush set. And I buffed out the edges of all the shadows using that brush. For my inner corner, I used the R101 brush from What's Up Beauty and applied the shade Nice as Pie. For my liner, I used the eye defining pen from Tom Ford, and I used the Urban Decay 24/7 eye pencil in Chaos for my lower waterline. For mascara, I used the Bite Beauty Upswing mascara. So that is how I created this eye look, and I mean, final thoughts probably aren't going to be a big surprise, but I am so happy with this palette. Like I said, and what I put in my community post when I initially shared pictures of it, is that I was kind of on the fence about the color story. Everything looked a little purple, the green was kind of throwing me off. I wasn't quite sure just what was going on, but now that I have it in hand, it's beautiful. And actually, I really like the inclusion of the green because I just think it gives it another element. It just creates some versatility within a very small palette. I mean, 7 shades is not a lot to play around with. So having a little bit of a twist on the colors in there, I think is really fun and just makes it a bit more of a playful palette. I do like the bubblegum palette, but I find it's a little bit hard to get super creative when it's all monochromatic. Throw in a little bit of that purple element in the sapphire shade, throw in the green, which is a little unexpected, and it just opens up the whole door to creativity as far as I'm concerned. And I think that the greens and the blues really pair nicely together. They just play off each other really well, and I really just, like I said, enjoy the inclusion of it. And one thing that I really like in this palette is that they've stayed away from the brown neutral shades. Not that I mind them, but they're in all of the other palettes, and I think it just would have been a detraction. I think they went the right route with this by including this like sort of really deep greeny sort of gray over here. Like I said when I was talking about the swatches, I'm glad that it's not a matte black because I think this is just a little bit softer, a little bit easier to work with, but still does create that dimension on the eye that you want from a deeper shadow. I like that they didn't go with the navy blue because there are navy blues in the Blueberry Muffin palette as well as in Bubblegum, and this is just a nice, different, again, unexpected twist on it. So overall, from the color story perspective, I'm really happy with this. From a performance perspective, I really didn't have any issues with the matte shades at all. I was experiencing a little bit of difficulty in terms of getting it to adhere right into like the fold of the eye. However, I'm going to blame that on the primer that I was using. This is new to me. It's the Ultimate Shadow and Liner Primer from NYX. I'm still just playing around with it. This is only my second time using it. So far, I'm not really a big fan. It's very, very sticky. And I find that if I don't set it down, that is what happens, is that it just gets really sticky, particularly in the crease where my eye does a lot of folding with hooded eyes. So I'm gonna blame the primer, not the shadows. Once I sort of smoothed it out a little bit off camera, I was able to apply the shadow to it much more easily, but initially, well, you saw it. So my experience with the mattes was very positive. They're very pigmented, they build up really nicely, they blend out, they blend together. I'm quite happy with the mattes. And then the shimmers, I needed a hold on to your butt warning because when I applied Cool, I mean, I think my reaction speaks for itself. I damn near fell out of my chair. It is such a beautiful and intense color, and I cannot wait to play with it again and make that shadow the star of the show. Just like all over my face, frankly. I would go full on Smurf for the sake of wearing that shade all over my face. It's beautiful. But I really didn't have any issues with any of the shimmery shadows. They pick up nicely on a brush. They deposited onto the eyes really nicely. I didn't use any setting spray today, and yet I don't feel like I need to. They're beautiful. And then, like I've said in previous reviews, these pressed glitters, I'm not a super fan of pressed glitters. I'll use them, but I'm not in love with them. However, as far as pressed glitters go, these are probably my favorite pressed glitters. It's something about the base that's in there. So as you saw, I applied it to my inner corner. Nothing is falling apart, but I didn't use any glitter glue or anything of that sort. So these are just applying based on whatever they're suspended in. So I do find that the pressed glitters that they put in these palettes do have a lot of payoff to them without being really patchy and frustrating to work with. They do adhere to the eyes nicely, so you don't necessarily have to use the glitter glue. If you're going to put it all over the lid, I would recommend doing that just to really lock them into place. And as I've said before, and I will continue to say, use your own discretion when it comes to using pressed glitters. There are no warnings on this palette about it not being eye safe, but nor does it say that it is eye safe. I know nothing about the biodegradable nature of these glitters. BH Cosmetics does consider themselves to be clean, but I don't know if that extends to the glitters. So if you have any concerns whatsoever about pressed glitters, and in particular about the BH Cosmetics pressed glitters, I always recommend that you do your own research on that. Don't just trust some stranger sitting on the internet. I've never had an issue with their pressed glitters, but that doesn't mean that I never will. So that's my spiel on pressed glitters. all of that to say, I am extremely happy with this palette. I am very pleasantly surprised at how rich these shades are, and I really like the inclusion of the green. It was throwing me, I'm not gonna lie, it was throwing me for a loop because when I think sapphire, again, I think blue, but I think it's just such a nice little addition to this palette, and I'm just so thrilled with this one. So in summary, in case you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I am extremely happy with this palette, and honestly, for $9, you really can't go wrong. Even if you never use that pressed glitter, you're still getting 6 other high quality shadows that perform beautifully, and particularly in this case, are just a really fun color story. So that's all I've got to say about that. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What do you think of the color story? Is this a palette that you're going to pick up? If it's your birthday this month, happy birthday, all of that good stuff. But for now, I'm going to wrap the video up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next one. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.